May I request all the delegates to please return to your seats as we're about to begin the next session.
I welcome you all in this session 2A. Here we'll be dealing with land question. So our speakers are, first of all, I invite our discussant, Dr. Mihika Chatterjee. Then I invite Ameet Kumar, Mrityunjay Pandey, Gobinda Padhan, and Peddi Dayakar. 4 papers here. So each speaker will get 20 minutes each. And please adhere to the time. And there is, some markers will show you. And please finish it, try to finish it within time. First, I would request Ameet Kumar to present paper on problematizing land reform in Jammu and Kashmir, India.
Good evening, everyone. So myself, Ameet Kumar. So I'm from Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Roorkee. So the title of my presentation is Problematizing Land Reform in Jammu and Kashmir, India. So these are the content of my presentation. So introduction. So let's move during the Dogra regime in Jammu and Kashmir. So after the Treaty of Amritsar in 1846-47, the Jammu and Kashmir came under the rule of Dogra regime. And from that time onwards, the Hindu Maharaja ruled Jammu and Kashmir till the time of independence or partition of India and Pakistan. So the end of this Dogra regime, it led to shift from monarchy to participatory democracy. So Sheikh Abdullah rule came after this partition period. So it led to finish this Dogra regime and shifted towards democracy. Then what happened at that time? During that time, Sheikh Abdullah came up with the idea of land reform, and as you all know, the Jammu and Kashmir land reform is considered as one of the best land reform in the country. So, why this land reform happened? The concentration of the lands in the hands of absentee landlords was one of the reasons. High taxation policies, tenancy rights without protection, ejectment of tenants by landlords, non-utilization of cultivable lands, and the prevalence of this landless system, or we call this beggar system. This led to Sheikh Abdullah came up with the idea of land reform in Jammu and Kashmir. So moving to the next slide, what was the condition of Dalits in Jammu and Kashmir during the Dogra regime? So Dalits were mostly landless farmers. Prevalence of poverty was there. So they were not allowed to enter in the temples. So segregation from water resources, deprivation of education, marginalization, and even disenfranchisement in politics also. So another thing is that even segregation in cremation grounds, there are separate cremation grounds for Dalits and others was prevalent during the Dogra regime. So what happened during that period? So one of the important socio-religious reform movement emerged in different part of the country, and it also affect Punjab area. And due to the undivided Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab, so the influence of land reform also reached in Jammu and Kashmir, and during the same period. And the Maharaja's role is also important. One of Maharaja Hari Singh, he also helped Dalits and provided some sort of concessions in the later part of this Dogra regime. Then land reform and Dalits. So Dalits were considered as one of the main beneficiaries of this land reform that happened during that period. And the changing status of Dalits was also due to this important step of Sheikh Abdullah regime, that is land reform. Even the Saxena in his work, he also talked about that land reform, Arya Samaj and voluntary organization and policies of the government help Dalits in their socio and economic upliftment in the region. Same Bakshi also highlighted that Dalits, the lowest rate of landlessness among the Dalits in Jammu and Kashmir. Moving further, so what are the loopholes of this land reform? So uneven distribution of benefits. So landlords, their land was took away and they did not get compensation. So due to this special status of Jammu and Kashmir, post 1947, so due to that, landlord did not get this compensation as compared to other parts of the country. Then there is also a regional bias, as Jammu has less fertile land than Kashmir, and it also created problem. Then legislative loopholes. So people also, those who are in Masalpur, they also took benefit to bypass these legislation. So, and same is the village power. So coming to this, that so the Jammu and Kashmir, as you all know, most of the everyone will think about Jammu and Kashmir. They will think about the conflict between India and Pakistan, the conflict between Jammu's Hindus versus Muslim Kashmir. So nobody discuss about the internal division in Jammu region or Kashmir. So yeah, the religious conflict, it is highlighted in all the academic discourses, and the discourse of marginalized section remain invisible in Jammu and Kashmir. So this dominant discourse overshadow this subaltern discourse in this. So the prime purpose of this paper is to highlight this, the unequal property, that although land reform helped Dalits in Jammu and Kashmir, but when it comes to unequal property is the one, those who left from the Indian side of Jammu and Kashmir towards the other side, they kept their immovable property in the Indian side. So in my field area, so most of the Dalits, they received this unequal property. So since partition time, they have this allotment land rights in this unequal property rather than having ownership rights. So methodology. So this study uses the economic emancipation lens, as Ambedkar said that this political emancipation will not only help Dalits, but economic emancipation is also important in their emancipations. So I'm highlighting this through unequal property that remain mere tokenism and perpetuating structural inequality through unrealized liberation and denial of ownership rights to Dalits. So this research is mainly ethnographic in nature. So I conducted a village study in Jammu and Kashmir in different phases between 2021 to 2023. So this is one of the part of my PhD thesis. And in this paper, so mainly I will highlight these two questions. What were the land reform policies, principal aims and objectives in post-independence Jammu and Kashmir? And what have been the long-term socio-economic implication of systematically denying land ownership rights to Dalits in the region since independence? So coming to discussion and findings. So yes, this land reform is considered as one of the progressive and redistributive steps of that regime, while at the same time it routinely denied Dalits group, including the West Pakistani refugees, the right to full ownership on unequal property. So let us first discuss this land reform in Jammu and Kashmir impacted Dalits differently. So there are mainly three different groups of Dalits in Jammu and Kashmir. First is native Dalits. So native Dalits are also divided among 13 different jatis. And they received benefit of this land reform. They got this ownership right also in of this Sheikh Abdullah regime land reform. When it comes to West Pakistani refugees, yes, they are migrated from that western side of Pakistan to Indian side, and they are systematically denied of this most of the right, like they were denied a permanent residence certificates of the states. They don't have right to get education in schools. They are denial of scholarships. they were denial of all the benefits that are available for other section. Similarly, the case with Valmiki community. So Valmiki communities, they are basically from Punjab, and in 1957, in Jammu and Kashmir, there was a strike by sanitation workers. So during that time, the government of Jammu and Kashmir called these Valmiki people from Punjab to come in Jammu and Kashmir and work for them. So they were also denial of these all sort of benefits. So highlighting the case of native Dalits in Ranveer Singhpura is an area where I conducted field work. So as stated by a research participant, the government says that you have been given the agricultural land to work on and eat from, but you don't have ownership rights over this land. So our forefathers got land post 1947 as those who left from this side to Pakistan left their land here. So we got that land. And this is allotment land, we can use this for agriculture purpose only. The government of Jammu and Kashmir did not give us ownership right as we are Harijans. The most important factor that kept us away from ownership right is caste. The government might be thinking that those who left here might come back. At the same time, the government gave land to refugees, those who came from Pak-occupied Kashmir. They are different refugees. And other areas, they got ownership right. Then another research participant, a Dalit West Pakistani refugees, is now retired from central government job because the West Pakistani can get central government job, but not state government jobs before the abrogation of Article 370. So he said that due to Article 370 and 35A, we were deprived of rights where we were living from a long time. The special status which debarred us from not only jobs in the state, but also in the election of state assembly and local level. But now, after the abrogation of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, we have domicile certificates, and now we can expect that those who are educated will get jobs in the state union territory. While highlighting the issue of allotted land, he stated that ये ज़मीन हमारी अपनी भी है लेकिन अपनी नहीं. This is like our land, but it is not ours. This is allotted land, and the government can take away this land at any point in time, all of us. But no, after the abrogation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir, we got a domicile certificate, and no, we can expect that those who are educated will get jobs in the state or UT. We are confident that government might give us ownership right to this land. Similarly, unlike the native Dalits and West Pakistani refugees, Sikh refugees who are considered as citizens of Jammu and Kashmir received land rights. The refugees there came from Pak-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, also known as Punchi refugees, came and settled in Jammu. So after their settlement in Jammu, the government granted them land rights for homestead as well as agricultural land. So during the field work, as stated by a Sikh research participant, so after the horror of this partition, we came to Jammu. Before settling in this area, we stayed in different locations like Nagrota, Satwari, and finally we got land from the government here. All of us received homestead land as well as agricultural land. So in Jammu, the stories of land reforms among Dalits, West Pakistani refugees, and the POJK refugees show that caste, legal status, and geographical factor substantially influence the implementation of land reform rather than following a uniform agriculture logic. So what are the problems associated with this allotment land? So most important problem is the denial of benefit of the government schemes. For example, if a Dalit who have this allotment land, if government wish to take away that land, they will not get any compensation. They are denied from different schemes of the government, like PM Kisan or any scheme, because they have allotment land. Another thing is that if they need to construct anything in their land, they need no objection certificate from a government department, that is custodian department. So custodian department is there, and it also leads towards corruption, open up avenues for corruption. And even they also don't get loans due to they don't have collateral to show that we have properties, so they don't get loans from the banks. So a research participant from a Dalit community, he stated that So permission is required for different activities if we have allotted land. Allotted land is like a sword is hanging over our heads. Who knows when the government might take it away? In Hindi, तलवार तो हमारे ऊपर लटक रही क्या पता कब सरकार छीन ले जाए ये ज़मीन. So this shows that government can take away this land at any time. And recently there was a construction of highway, and those who have allotted land, they did not get any compensation from the government. Another pertinent issue is land grabbing. So due to different informal practices, these land grabbers take away this land and sell this land in the market also. Coming to the policy recommendation, so the first is they need to give us full ownership right to this community, those who have allotment lands, so that they can ensure security of tenure and providing access to credit and subsidies for these cultivators. Second thing is that, so need to digitalize all these land records, all these, whatever that allotment land they have, it need to be digitalized. And the ensure mandatory disclosure of transparency in these different stages. And it also need to set up an independent ombudsman and grievance portal to prevent illegal this transfer of land and record manipulations. So coming to the conclusion, as we highlighted in this paper, that Ambedkar framework of freedom, dignity, and economic equality will, political equality will not help only Dalits, but economic equality is also important through giving Dalits land resources, capital, etc. So, so this idea need to rethink that, as I highlighted this thing, that the limitation of this current land reform in Jammu and Kashmir. So this is basically this allotment land remained as made tokenism to Dalits. So, and it also highlighted the state reluctance, the gap between formal recognition and material justice to Dalit community. So this is the bibliography. These are the references also I used in this paper. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. Now I'll call Mrityunjay Pandey to present the paper Analysis of Changes in Extent and Composition of Land Tenancy in India, an Exploratory Analysis. This paper is co-authored by Mrityunjay Pandey, Nisha Patel, and R. Vijay.
Hello. I would like to thank organizers for organizing this wonderful conference amid when the Indian agrarian economy is going through a very crucial time, and also giving me opportunity to present my work. This paper, Changes in Extent and Composition of Land Tenancy in India, is already published in Agrarian South Journal of Political Economy. The story is an all-India story. However, we acknowledge that there is a regional diversity in composition as well as character of tenancy in India. Towards the end, I will try to highlight a few aspects of it. However, the majority of the presentation will be an all-India story. Given the time constraint, I will not go into details of the significance of tenancy, literature, etc. I'll directly come to the main findings, or what say the findings of my paper. Yeah. So this paper presentation will be having 3 sections. In first section, I will present a long-term 1970-71 to 2018-19 trends in tenancy, primarily 2 sections. One is about how the extent of tenancy has changed over the time, and how the composition of tenants have changed over the time. In the second section, I'll try using that period's public policy, I'll try to understand why tenancy has declined in that particular period, 1970 to 1991, and in the second period, 1991 to 2018-19, using the public policy of that particular duration, I'll try to understand or explain why the tenancy has revived in Indian countryside. As you can see from this graph, the tenancy in India, which seems to be very high in 1970-71, has seen a phase of decline till 1991. However, after the next phase, which is also known as a phase of liberalization, we see a consistent increase in tenancy, or what we can say revival of tenancy, both in terms of leased in area as a share of total operation holding, as well as share of tenant in total cultivators. In this graph, I try to show the composition of tenants. In that, we can see from the shades of green color, the darkest one is share of marginal tenants. Sorry. Then further on, we can see that the lighter and lighter is presenting the other subcategories. These categories are operation holding categories, not the ownership. So as we can see from this, the main takeaway which I try to highlight is the darkest one, the marginal land operator tenants, which is 0 to 1 hectare. In the first phase, which I'm saying 1971 to 1991, it's almost consistent, and after that, it has seen a sudden rise. So we can see from 91 to 2002, there's a sudden rise in the share of marginal tenants in the total tenants. And thereafter also, it is increasing slowly. So in the first phase, the main tenants were the medium and the semi-median. However, in the revival phase, the main tenants has become the marginal tenants. So the main question which this paper is trying to address is how the public policy regime of the two phases is associated with the trends and the patterns and the composition of tenancy in Indian countryside. So as we know, it is well discussed in academia, particularly the agrarian economy circle, or those who are interested in agrarian economy of India, that in late 1960s, India has adopted a policy regime which is popularly known as Green Revolution, which has primarily 4 components: the input support, credit support, market support, and the price support. I'm not going to detail of it, but these policies have certain impact on Indian agrarian economy. And these was, the first one I tried to show the use of fertilizer. So as we can see that, the fertilizer, which is one of the most important productivity enhancing input in Indian agriculture. So from 1971, there's a consistent increase of fertilizer used per hectare in Indian agriculture till 2002-03. And in the later phase, we see a stagnation. Similarly, here I'm presenting the value of output for food grains and non-food grains, and the yield of the food grains. So in the first phase, which I'm saying the tenancy declining phase, there's a consistent increase in value of output for food grain, as well as the value of output of non-food grain and the yield of food grain. However, in the later phase, the trends are inconsistent. In one phase, it has, like in the one decade, it has declined. In another one, it saw a certain rise, but again, it has declined. So there is no consistency of increase which has maintained. That was there in the phase of Green Revolution, or what we can say the declining phase of tenancy in India. Through this, I am trying to show the investment or ownership over the modern machinery versus the traditional machineries. So in the first phase, 1970 to, let's say, till 1995 or 2000, there's a consistent decline in ownership of bullock per 1,000 hectare, whereas there is a consistent increase in tractor per 1,000 hectare. Unfortunately, I couldn't have access to information further 2007, so I'm presenting in numbers till 2007. However, there also we can see that in the second phase, the tractor ownership per 1,000 hectare starts stagnating. So I'm not speculating whether the trend will continue in the upcoming period or not, but there is stagnation already begin post 2000. So what I'm trying to take away from this, that with the green revolution policies, the productivity and the profitability in agriculture has increased, which has positively incentivized owners to cultivate their land, which leads to decline of leasing out and tenancy in Indian countryside, which has also come out in many village studies which is conducted. Now I'll move to the third section of my paper, which deals with why tenancy has revived in India. By 1990s, there was discussion that tenancy is a story of the past. From last 40, 45 years, we are seeing a consistent decline in tenancy, and the owner cultivation has started increasing, the other forms of land organization has started increasing, and tenancy has become the things of the past. However, from 2000 onwards, we see there's a consistent and very rapid revival of tenancy in Indian countryside. What has led to this revival? I'll come to that. There is a shift in the public policy regime in India from 1991, which popularly known as liberalization, privatization, and globalization. It has its, for the different sectors, there are different sort of policies has come, but the focus was on private investments. The focus was shifted to efficiency. And in agriculture, in 2000, a policy came which is known as National Agricultural Policy 2000, which was primarily had multi-dimensional aspects, which was decline of state investment in agriculture or public investment in agriculture, decline in agriculture extension services, decline in rural credits or formal rural credit system or rural credit priority system, which has certain impacts on Indian agrarian economy, which is visible from this table. As we can see, in the earlier phase, which I'm saying 1980s, the public investment in rural infrastructure was 3.5% as share of gross GFCF, which has declined to almost half to 1.9%. In rural credit, what we see that there's from 1971 to 1991, there's a decline in debt to asset ratio and increase in share of formal credit as a share of total rural credit. However, in the next phase, the debt to asset ratio has increased and the share of formal credit has declined. In terms of trade also, we see that the terms of trade has going against agriculture in the later phase. So how it has impacted the agrarian economy? How these statistics lead to, what it is led to the actual agrarian economy in India. So we see two processes are happening in an Indian economy. One is formation of an agrarian crisis, and second, a formation of employment crisis. What I mean by the formation of agrarian crisis is, in this phase, due to marketization of agriculture, due to certain push by the state towards the more of the marketization, the input usage has increased. It has certain impact on the yield. However, the prices is not reflected in a similar fashion. So at one hand, state was not supporting or subsidizing the input costs, so cost of cultivation has increased. On the other side, there was no assured price system, or let's say MSP, or any kind of state support toward the assuring the returns from agriculture, and agriculture being a fragile system, the profitability has started declining. So in Indian agriculture, see a profitability squeeze, later it became a profitability crisis, which has its impact on employment as well. As you can see that in the last two rounds of situation assessment survey, per acre cost of crop income has declined. When you see in the employment market in India, as I discussed earlier, there's a crisis in agriculture, means demand for labor in agriculture is declining. Due to mechanization, the demand has further squeezed. So the labor is looking beyond agriculture in rural areas, in semi-urban areas, and in metropolitans. So there is a rapid out-migration of the labor or small cultivators happening in the country. At the same time, in this phase, there is an actual decline of number of employment in India. From period of 2000 to 2010-12, we see the rate of growth of employment has stagnated. However, post 2012, we see the actual number of employment has started declining in India. And the main decline has came in unorganized urban sectors. So there is a crisis of employment in rural areas, in agriculture as well as in non-agriculture. Due to declining profitability, the investment has impacted investment as well. At the same time, there's a decline in employment in urban areas, which lead to mixing of livelihoods in the rural economy. So household to survive is oscillating between agriculture, non-agriculture, farm labor, non-farm labor, cultivation, non-cultivation, which have lead to creation of mixed household, or we say household which has to engage in multiple occupation, multiple livelihood avenue just to survive. It has come into various, it has came in situation assessment survey as well, and many of the village studies have also highlighted this aspect. And this has led to revival of tenancy in Indian countryside, particularly led by marginal land operators. For taking land on tenancy, they are primarily landless, near landless households. They're taking, because their labor, they're not getting ample days of employment in the labor market to survive for food security or utilize their family labor at some way, they are moving towards tenancy. However, tenancy in India is not a universal story. It's not that throughout the India tenancy is increasing. There are certain states which have very high rates of tenancy, others do not follow the same. Here I'm highlighting the 5 or 6 states, the Punjab, Haryana, Andhra, Bihar, West Bengal and Orissa. These are primary states where tenancy has risen rapidly in last 2 decades. And these are the states which have led to revival of tenancy in India. However, we can put these 2 states, even the pattern in these 6 states or 7 states are not similar. That can also be blocked in different way based on the nature of tenancy and the composition of tenants. In this is a graph of 18 states, which are major agrarian states in India. We have excluded the hilly terrains or the hilly states of India and taken only the major agrarian states. In this graph, I'm presenting the share of landless and the marginal landowner tenants in all tenants for 2018-19 round of NSSO. What we can see that there are 2 forms of tenancies are emerging in India. One is the Eastern Bloc, the Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, where the share of effectively landless tenants or tenants who are landless or ownership with 0 to 1 hectare are almost 95% and above of the total tenants of that region. On the other side, there are states like Punjab and Haryana, where the share of landless and near landless tenants is less than 30% of the total tenants. Though this paper is primarily on the All India story, in the future we are interested in exploring how the regional diversity or regional variables are playing to create a differentiated story in the different regions. Then the question comes, who demands the leased land in India now? When there is agrarian crisis, the agrarian economy is in distress, at that time, the All India story which are coming is primarily driven by the states of the Eastern Blocs. These states are Bihar, Odisha and Bengal. In these states, more than 95% of the tenants are landless and near landless. In All India story, more than 70% of tenants are landless and marginal landowners. So primarily the national story or the All India story is driven by these blocks. What's happening in these states, I have already discussed. There is a creation of mixed household who are surviving through engaging in multiple livelihood avenues and oscillating between those. Some of the members are engaging in all these occupation at different phases of the year or different phase time. However, the literature has also brought, there's another possible story of tenancy revival. Like Gaurav Bansal, who's I think around, has written a paper based on the field work in Punjab, which shows that amid the agrarian crisis, there's a section of tenant capitalist farmers which are aggressively leasing a large chunk of the land and accumulating using tenancy. So this is the reference to our paper, and we will like comments and we like to have a critical comments on our paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrityunjay. Now, I would request Gobinda Padhan to present a paper on caste stratification, land inequality, and landlessness in post-reform rural India. This paper is co-authored by Gobinda Padhan and Chitroshen Bhuye.
Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to thank FAS for providing such a intellectual environment to discuss issues related to Indian agriculture. And in this presentation, I have three parts. In first part, I'll provide a kind of background and introduction along with the methodology. In second part, some descriptive statistics about land distribution in India. And in third part, I will decompose the total inequality into between caste inequality, within caste inequality, and the nature of and the quantum of overlapping between the caste group. So, all we know that caste is a distinctive and equally exploitative institutions in India, especially in rural India. And the institution of caste has been designed in such a way that there cannot be a win-win situation. If for the benefit of other one caste group, other caste group has to sacrifice something. That's why B.R. Ambedkar says that caste does not exist in singularity, but in relation to the other. Along with determining social relation, caste also determine its access and drainage to different resources. And among those resources, land is one of the important resource, which not only signifies your economic well-being or economic status, but it also signifies your social well-being. So, in that background, we would like to analyze the caste stratification and land inequality in rural India. So, if we'll go by the land distribution in India, it is parallel with the hierarchical caste relation in India. And before independence, the whole distribution of resource was based on caste. And during the colonial period also, in the system of jamindaris and other, the land power was given to the elite caste or the so-called upper caste or caste people. And after independence, there were some movements like Bhudan movement, land reform movements, and other policies to curtail the level of land inequality. But that has somehow failed because of various reasons. And after post reform as well, the magnitude of equality and the marginalization of the small and marginal farmer and the landless people is widening in India. So, in this background, my research questions are that, what are the recent trends and patterns of within and between land inequality across the caste in rural India? And is there any overlapping of land ownership across caste group in post-reform rural India? And these are my methodology. In this section, I want to say that this is an all India study, and the data source for this study is from secondary sources. Different 59, 17, and 77th round of land and livestock survey and the situation assessment survey. And here we define landless as those people, like the people who have, there are two kinds of landless people. some people who have both homestead land and the land other than homestead land. So in our study, someone is landless or in the landless if he does not have like any land except the homestead land. And here the land ownership means land owned and possessed plus the amount of lease out land. And the different data analysis tools has been used. Yeah. So first we calculated something called as the representation index. It is nothing but the percentage of land owned by a particular caste group divided by its total, its share in the population. So strikingly, others group enjoy a distinct as in representation that is consistently more than 1.3 over the years. And scheduled tribes groups have modest over-representation in land ownership, and it continues to increase over the years in a slow but steady way. It is largely because of implementation of forest right and also policies. And although the OBC capture the major chunk of the population, they are just represented in case of the land ownership. And the scheduled castes are severely underrepresented in land ownership across the years. Even their value of representation index is less than 0.5. That means that their land ownership is less than their population share. And the gap in representation index and others, the gap between the gap in representation index of others and the SC manifests the profound caste-based structural inequality, especially the systematic exclusion of scheduled caste from the land ownership. To understand the dynamic of land distribution a bit more, we have calculated the across the caste group what is their percentage of households, how much area they own, their mean land ownership, and their median land ownership. So other group had a highest average land ownership, strengthening the hierarchy of caste distribution at the top. Coming to the next, scheduled caste possess the second highest average land ownership, followed by others, and slightly more median than the rest of the caste group, reflect more equitable distribution within the scheduled caste. But the land occupied by STs are mostly hilly and infertile in nature, as proposed by Professor Nancharia in 2002. And again, for the OBCs, the median land ownership of OBCs category is 0.14, reflecting the presence of large-scale smallholders within the group, even though their land ownership share is highest. Again, the land vulnerability of scheduled caste are reflected by the fact that their median land ownership is 0, reflecting prevalence of large-scale landlessness within the scheduled caste. Overall, the mean land ownership is greater than the median land ownership, reflecting a positively skewed distribution. That is, few people are at the top and own exceptionally large amount of land. So, going one step further, we calculated that what is happening at the every percentile, and here we can say that we have calculated the deviation from overall by social group index, DOSG index we are naming it. And this is the deviation between the percentile value of jth caste group, Pij, from the overall percentile Pi, and that is calculated by Pij minus Pi. So this is like that, how a particular caste group percentile value is different from the overall caste group. And here we can say that, you can see that in every caste group, the scheduled castes are underrepresented. Or they are below the average, they are below the overall percentile value. And as pointed earlier, the more than half of the scheduled caste household are landless, followed by OBCs 40%, and for both ST and others it is merely 30%. Caste stratification in land ownership increased towards the upper tail of the distribution. In every percentile, others group outperform the overall percentile, especially after the 15th percentile, indicating a significant overrepresentation of other groups in the upper percentile. On the other hand, the outperformance of others group and simultaneous deterioration of rest of the groups after the 15th percentile represents higher intergroup inequality at the upper percentile. Scheduled castes consistently lag behind the overall percentile, and there might be rich SC household in terms of land holding within the SC category group, but they are too poorer than the overall rich households. Till the 15th class, average land holding was highest for scheduled caste, followed by others, OBCs and SC. After 16, OBC, others surpass ST, OBC and SC and rank top. OBCs are just near the average line from the above. And this is like the representation index of all 4 social groups across the caste, across the states. Across all states, scheduled castes are underrepresented along with at all India as well. And the figure was less than 0.5 in Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Kerala, Punjab and Bihar, where they constitute major chunk of the population. OBC might be properly represented at all India level, but in some states like Gujarat, Haryana, Kerala and Punjab, they are severely underrepresented. Land ownership is not homogeneously overrepresented for STs across all states. In major 8 states, STs are underrepresented, and the representation index of 0.1 in Haryana represents the severe marginalization of STs in the state. In almost every state, other category are overrepresented except in Tamil Nadu and Assam. And for states like Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Haryana, it is nearly 2, having at all India level at 1.33. So 2 means their land ownership is double than that of their population. Then we look into the inequality part, that this is for the year 2002, 12 and 18, how much land is owned by bottom 25%, bottom 50% and the top 1%. And this graph shows that the land ownership by the bottom, from the year 2012 to 18, the land ownership by the bottom 50% has declined, but the land ownership by the top 1% has increased. And over these 3, likely to be 3 decades, the land ownership by the bottom 25% is 0. And then we start to decompose the total inequality into within group inequality and between group inequality. There are many methods to decompose inequality into within group inequality and the between group inequality, like Thel index and other measures. But the specialty of the Yadgi decomposition method is that it is a Gini-based decomposition method, and it can work even though there is overlapping between the caste group, whereas the other methods can't work there, and they assume that there is no any overlapping across the groups when they do the decomposition. So the formula for the Gini coefficient here is 2 into covariance between Y, and here Y is the land ownership and Fy is the, we can say in simplified term, we can say that the rank of that particular individual in the total distribution. So this is the covariance between the land ownership and the rank of that person in the total land distributions. And it is normalized by the mean. And again, the Gini coefficient can be decomposed into within caste, between caste inequality and the within caste inequality, that is G is equal to CB plus CW. And the speciality of the Yadgi decomposition is that it acknowledges the overlapping across the caste group. So here I have calculated that decomposition without overlapping and with the assumption of overlapping, right? So without overlapping, we can say that for the year 2018, 20% of the total inequality is caused by between group inequality. But if we will allow for the overlapping, then it is likely to be 4.83%. And rest 95% is caused by the within group inequality. Then if there is so much within group inequality, we have again decomposed the within group inequality as sigma SI, GI, OI. Here SI is the share of land by that particular caste group I, G is the Gini coefficient, and O is the overlapping. And here overlapping means how much a caste group is encircled by another caste group. So it is likely to be the opposite of the stratification. And these are the formulas and the properties of overlapping index. Here we can say from this table we can say that furthermore, if we will decompose the within caste inequality as in equation 3 of that, OBCs contribute half of the intercaste inequality, followed by others contributing quarter of the total within inequality. So majority of inequality is contributed, majority of within group inequality is because of inequality within OBCs and the others group. And STs and SC contribute the least to the within group inequality. Even though SCs are being the highest within group unequal caste, this is because of lower landholding share of scheduled caste in the total landholding. Column 7 represents the relative contribution of intragroup in accordance with their income share. SCs and OBCs contribute more to the intragroup inequality in comparison to their income share, and this is because of high inequality within the group. So you can see that in column 7, the value is is greater than 1 for SCs and OBCs. Again, however, SC is not a homogeneous group, and some SCs are much better off than the other SCs in terms of land ownership, and which is reflected by high within group inequality and an overlapping index greater than 1, means it is more polarized caste. However, overlapping greater does not mean SCs are richer than the overall population. To understand this, we have estimated the Gaussian kernel density function by taking logarithmic value of land ownership for year 2018, and we can clearly see that the lengthening towards TEL for non-SC caste group are higher than the SCs. Here is the graph. We can here clearly says that the TEL is much more higher for other non-SC group than that of the SC groups. And again, looking to the overlapping index of particular caste group with the rest of the caste group here, the reference group is shown on the row subscript I, that is on the rows, and others groups are shown in column subscript J in OJIA, and ST-SC overlap is asymmetric, that is scheduled caste underrepresented in ST while ST spills into SC's distributions. SCs remain the most deprived with consistently lower overlaps with all the rest of the groups. And again, OBCs shows strong overlap with both STs and SCs, reflecting their intermediate positions. Others group have overlap widely with ST and OBCs due to broad internal dispersion within them, and it is highly dispersed, ranging from very low to high holdings, and this is broad spread allows part of the others group to align within the disadvantaged groups at bottom while extending far beyond them at the top. Overall, overlap highlights caste stratification, where poorer caste are embedded within better of groups distribution but not the reverse. This overlapping index can give biased result in presence of extreme values. And because here overlapping depends on the rank and amount of land of each individual in each group, to overcome this we have estimated what percentile and average person of caste I stand in relation to caste J, and for every caste group, scheduled caste stand at left part of the distribution, scheduled tribe at the right part of the distribution of SCs and OBCs, and it placed exactly middle in the distribution of others. And the same is true for others akin to ST. So the conclusion of our paper is that yes, persistently there is high land inequality in India, and it is persisting over the years, and majority of land inequality is caused by within group inequality, and there is a caste stratification in land holding where poorer castes are embedded within the better of groups distribution, but not the vice versa. Thank you.
Thank you, Govinda, for the excellent presentation. Now, I would request P. Dayakar to present his paper on sustaining soil, securing yields, a longitudinal study of land degradation and productivity in India.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers to inviting me to present my paper. So this is actually, in the sense, like it's a very, the basic level to understand the land degradation issues in the context of how we can value and what extent we can value what extent we can actually put the value for the degraded land, which is exists in the over the period of time. So, of course, this paper is quite, the bit different aspect of land, which is going to, which is going to pursue that. This paper is it's a kind of collaborative work with the Professor Kavi Kumar at Madras School of Economics. So, but of course, the major issue I just wanted to highlight here, few peaks here. If we look at the land degradation pattern, the land degradation is actually, it's just in the sense like the productivity of land is declining over the period of time. That's the simplest with the version of definition we can think of. But in the sense of, you can also have a different, the process of degradation, which is mostly happening in the context of India, which is soil erosion is the major part of the country, the major part of the problem, or contribute to the aggregate level of degradation, and also the waterlogging and soil erosion kind of, the waterlogging and salinity is another aspect which is actually, the burning the issue, it's creating a lot of issues in the agriculture productivity. These glimpse of pictures will tell you how the different states, if you look at the different, the states, across the states, how the process takes place. So, and why we should actually consider the land degradation or degraded land as an issue in the context of India. So most of the, the country which is actually, the contribution come from the erosion. 37% of this total area is degraded, and also saline is around 18%, and also other things are also, it's majorly contributing to the productivity of agricultural loss. Not only the other perspective like farmers issues and all, along with that, this is also one of the major issue which is actually arising in the context of India. And also, then is this the one which is actually going to look into this issue first time? So there are many people or many studies or organizations are looking to this issue, which is like, for example, the Commission on Agriculture and the National Remote Sensing Agency, and also Ministry of Agriculture and so on and so forth. There are many people who looked into this issue. But if you look at the figures here, the figure shows that, but different, the extent of degradation itself, it's a varies a lot, it's not close to each other, because it has its own, when they're generating the land degradation data itself, it has a different methodologies they might have used, and it mostly, the data come from the resolution, it's a kind of satellite resolution, imaginary data kind of stuff, we generally use it. So that itself has a lot of variation, the objectives of the data generating process and all. That's the reason it has, the extent of land degradation have a lot of, we cannot compare with each and with the other things. But recently, the past, the 1 decade or so, it's close to 2 decades, from ISRO, they actually came up with a very consistent estimates of the land degradation in the context of physical estimation, which is they have started like a 2003-5, it's the first round of estimating the physical, what is the extent which is actually degraded. And then 2011-13 and 17-19, these are the 3 rounds which is actually reported in the context of India. So, but these again, it's have the base for us to understand how, over the period of time, how the the land degradation takes place. So when you look at the data here, this is the data which you can actually, the map which is generated by the ISRO, which is again through the satellite data. So these data has a multiple levels of layers which we need to understand here, but we are not going to look into the each and everything. This is not the, the context which we are going to debate or discuss how they have generated and all these things. But the some of the components, the major components which come from the data, which is one is the process of land degradation, and also, in the sense like the soil erosion is the major component which we are looking into the assessing the data. The second one is the waterlogging and salinity issues, how that is contributing to the data. As we saw that, that's around 80% of the land degradation process happen in India. So again, if you look at the interlink, this is the upcoming literature which we can actually think about how the land degradation is actually alone have an issue with the agriculture, which is actually the recent literature at the global level talks about which is always have a interdisciplinary in nature, and also it has its own issues with the other things. Over the period of time, last 2 days, we are talking emphasizing a bit, or talking some panel members also emphasize that climate change is also one of the major issue. The interlinkages of climate change and also land degradation is very, very close to, when you look into the land degradation itself, the process of land degradation also determined for the climate change. The climate change is also causing for the land degradation. That kind of close interrelationship between this climate change and agriculture, land degradation exists. The other part of that, if land degradation exists or desertification exists, so desertification is nothing but it's the process of land degradation in arid regions. So when the land degradation increases, which is also dominantly influence the groundwater level is going down, which is again lead to the food sustainability and all other issues, which prominently, the source of those issues also which come from the land degradation. Again, those issues again, it's a circle kind of thing which is always happen. So land degradation affecting the climate change affect the land degradation, both will affect the groundwater table, and when the groundwater table goes down, the quality of water is also goes down, which is again in the sense the other dimensions, the biodiversity. These all things we can think of it's in the sense of research, the recent research which talks about. But in this study, which we are actually looking into the how we can value the cost of land degradation. So if it's at what extent we can actually say this is contributing to in terms of acre, what is the cost for in terms of acres and all other things. But there are notable contributions you can think of here. This is the Ratna Reddy paper, which is one of the prominent paper which extensively studied on the land degradation issue in 2003, which is out in the EPW1. And the other one very recently, very recently in the sense 1 decade ago, it's a collaborative at the global level. Maithili and other people also talked about this issue. And there was another Ministry of Environment, and they have also commissioned, given to the project to the Terry, and they also came up with some of the, they have so valued for what is the extent we can actually value for the cost, the land degradation. So, but all this paper, very recent paper also, it talks about this one, but all these papers have actually issues with the data consistency, and also how you can think of, like, when you assign some economic value for the per acre land, that itself has a lot of issues when you generating those kind of data sets. Of course, the Maithili and all those papers are actually looked into not only with the simplest economic version of that, they also beyond that, they have gone to the the ecosystem services, and brought into if the land is degraded, how that is going to be, ecological values are going to, the effect and all those things. But more, by saying all these things, the problem with this issue is actually the data, physical data, the consistency of the physical data, and also how you're going to estimate at the aggregate level. And all these papers also, it's not linked to the only agriculture alone. They talked in a very general at aggregate level. They have taken into the total geographical area which they have talked about. There is no specifically mention about the agriculture study so far at best of our knowledge. So that's the reason we wanted to, try and estimate this. Of course, this method or whatever we are presenting here, I'm presenting here, it's a preliminary level of estimations here. So we are still working on this piece of work. So, and based on these limitations and all, the research question or objectives in per se, we can, think of here, how do the spatial patterns of soil salinity and erosion differ across Indian agriculture regions? And what is the economic value of crop output loss due to the salinity and erosion induced degradation on cultivated lands? And also this, it's tried to, in the sense like, to what extent can temporal changes in degradation be causally linked to the observed fluctuations in agriculture productivity? These are the broad objectives which this study looked into that. So, of course, when we talk about the data and the methods here, the data which is again we source from the ICRISAT, the desertification and land degradation atlas, which is generated by through the Space Application Center, which is again the ISRO data. So this atlas, give the consistence, the physical data, then what level of degradation is actually happening over the period of time across the across the states. Then the other variables which when we come to for the in the sense of and the economic value per hectare value of economic let's say for example if land degraded through the erosion, then what extent it's actually how you can value for that. This is it's all India level data. We cannot go and estimate each and every acre in each and every part of the country. So, because of that, so we use again, they relied on the secondary sources. They have some of the studies already conducted in the different parts of the country. So we have relied on that. The economic value for hectare value for the soil erosion and also hectare value for the waterlogging and salinity problem. So then again, there are some in the sense land degradation, the degraded, physical degraded values or variables we have used in the context of econometric modeler, which is net sown area, fertilizer consumption, agricultural labor force, and the gross value added as the total agriculture productivity, what we are talking in that. So which is actually come from the ICRISAT data, and we compile from the ICRISAT and also the APWF databases. All these variables are constructed for the 3 time points of which is come from the physical data of land degradation, and we aligned into and compiled into the across for these 3 time points. So if you look at the data here, let's say for example the eroded land, which is nothing but it's a soil erosion kind of thing. So when you look into the data which is for the particularly in 2019 period, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and also the other, the prominent, especially the Jharkhand. So these are the states which are actually more prone to the erosion problem in the country. It doesn't mean that other states are actually doing fine. So, but these are the states which are actually highly vulnerable to the soil erosion in the country. And whereas in the other context, soil erosion is mostly prominent in Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, and also Haryana, Punjab is also there. But these data set, surprisingly, this data set is actually, in the sense, it's not reporting too much at the aggregate level. But when it comes to the other data set, I'll show you in a minute. So that will tell you the real picture of at the district level data sets. So the most of the salinity problem which comes in the Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, and the UP, these are the main states we can think of here. And there is another interesting thing from this map we can actually, derive or observe. In fact, we can say that it's a better way to, we can say we can observe that. So total degradation or total land degradation area in 2009, so which 2019, 17 to 19 period, so which is actually the mostly come from the Jharkhand in terms of percentages, Odisha, in the sense of again, Telangana, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Gujarat, and Rajasthan. But interesting story is here, the change from 2003 to 2017-19 period. This is the around, it's like a 3 time points period. some of the states showed the better off in the sense like they improved the degraded land. They neutralized the, in other sense, degraded land. But whereas in the states like, some of the states like Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and some of the other states, the red colors, whatever the states, those states are actually even, the decline from 2003 to 2019-10. The realistic, the story, or if you look into the other part of the literature, which says that those states are actually more worked on the adaptation mechanisms, like let's say, for example, watershed mechanism and all other things. So in that sense, so these are the states better off in terms of converting into the degraded land into the other set of things. So I'm not going to, given the time framework, I'm not going to like too much focus on the econometric thing or methodology kind of thing, but we wanted to get into these. This is the methodology we followed for the how we can actually convert it into the economic cost per acre. So again, as I said, that aggregate level we cannot take one value for this one, so that we have actually use the benefit transfer method by using the literature and to estimate the aggregate level of understanding. So then the other one, the second part of the problem is actually, again, this is it's a straightforward model. Since we have 3 time points, we use the panel data sets. The simple panel data sets again have its own issues. So that's why we have gone to the in the sense like to overcome some of the econometric issues, we actually come up with in the sense of some of the better estimation for the unobserved effect and all control regression approach we have used for the, which is the developed or suggested by the Mandlik approach, what we call that. So then the results, if you see that again in the sense like Maharashtra and Rajasthan, Karnataka, Gujarat and Telangana as the more prominent states in terms of which is degraded in terms of erosion cost. And also in terms of salinity, which is again Gujarat is the most prominent state, which is the most affecting. Sorry. Oh, sorry. So I'm like operating 2 things. So in these things, when we see that Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Karnataka, Gujarat, and Telangana is actually having, affecting more compared to the, in terms of, the economic cost. But when it comes to the salinity, Gujarat is actually highly, it's the most dominant, dominantly having the problem here. So then in terms of, this is the perspective you can think of in terms of GSDP at the all India, across the states, and also agree GSDP in terms of across the states. But when you see that, it's around like 2 to the 4% of the their GSDP value, which is actually degraded. Again, as per the, you can think of this again. But when the interesting point, again, we can derive here, the value of economic value cost to the land degradation is actually going down. That's not actually reality in the things. So which is actually, which this, the graph is represented in terms of the percentages, the denominator is growing higher than the, whatever the numerator is happening. That's the reason it's showing the declining trend, what we can see that. But when it comes to the physical degradation part, which is again, it's increasing over the period of time. So then again, I just wanted to mention one thing, and I'll try to like, summarize the things. The soil erosion, again, when I say at the district level again, you can see that in terms of physical, the first 2 panels, the top of the 2 panels, you can see that soil erosion is the mostly dominant in the Jharkhand kind of districts, and the most prominent in the salinity in the Gujarat, and again some of the districts of Punjab now you can see here. These are the kind of things. Then this is the econometric method, but I'm not going to tell you it's not showing, just 1 minute, sir. So the model insights shows here the salinity, which is actually, it's a long-term salinity depresses the productivity, and in the short term gains, the reflect temporary adaptation mechanism which is playing. When it comes to the erosion problem, so strongly negative in the short-term impact, but positive in the long run, the impact implies partial adaptation in erosion-prone states. What does it mean? So, which means that in the long run, salinity problem is actually, it's a very slow problem, but it's a more prominent in the long term within the states. But when it comes to the erosion, which is actually, the farmers can realize that very easily, the erosion thing, they can actually do the certain adaptation mechanisms easily. That's what it's showing, that this is also in line with the physical data, whatever it's across the states happening. So this is the, of course, then when it comes to the policy or whatever, the literature, this paper is not deriving exactly the policy recommendation for this. This is a purely empirical work, what we are trying to understand here. But the literature says that when you actually do some kind of adaptation mechanisms, let's say for example, soil water conservation measures, when the farmers adapting certain kind of measures, so they're actually doing the better off in terms of yield improvement or in terms of productivity improvement, all these things. So I'll stop here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dayakar. Now we completed all the presentations, and it's actually very different aspects of land questions are dealt here. Now I would request Mihika Chatterjee, Dr. Mihika Chatterjee, to discuss all the papers and give her comments.
I won't take very long because I think it would be more fruitful to open it up for discussions quite immediately. But as you pointed out, the pressures on land are enormous, and we saw a variety of that, many varieties of that, I suppose, on this panel. I think what struck me most was that there are many axes along which there is variation. And so we saw that there are different groups of Dalits in Jammu, along which there is variation in how land demands are being formed. There's difference in landless tenants in the eastern bloc versus the kind of tenancy that rich farmers in Punjab and Haryana are asking for, which is presumably more reverse tenancy, although I didn't quite catch what the nature of tenancy was. There is caste-based inequality, particularly amongst OBCs, which we saw in the third presentation, and that would have its own intersection and inflection with class and therefore politics, particularly for OBCs, and we have seen this particularly in the case of Jats and Maratha demands, so those kinds of OBC politics. And then lastly, very interestingly, we saw that there are variations in the kind of pressures and therefore the kind of crisis that's brewing through degradation. I think more than comments across these very different papers, I have more questions, and I'll start with the first paper, which is for Ameet, for you. You used Dr. Ambedkar's framework of land, which is tied to dignity. And this perhaps in your case is inflected by precarity to citizenship in Jammu. So I was wondering, given that you showed the nuances of the kind of demands on land, is there anything specific about the idea or the framework of dignity in the case of Jammu? Is there, what is specific about the idea of dignity? So the fact that Dalits are doubly marginalized in land demands, and particularly demands of dignity, we see that all across India. But the fact that you are seeing differences in Dalit demands in Jammu, I'm wondering if there's anything specific about dignity and Dr. Ambedkar's framework in the case of Jammu, given the precarities of citizenship. I did have a question about politics and what the implications for politics are for the two sets of papers on tenancy and land inequalities. And for the last paper, my question was, what was quite interesting was both Maharashtra and UP in some ways are ranked very high on degradation, though for very different reasons. One was more related to erosion, and the other one was salinity. Given that they both rely on sugarcane quite heavily and have dependent on sugarcane cultivation, I was wondering if there is some crop-specific diversity that you also noticed. So I think that comparison would be very interesting to see why the reasons for degradation are different. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mihika Chatterjee. Now, I think we can accumulate few questions from the floor, and presenters can, answer those questions.
Hi. My question was for the last presentation. My name is Gautam. I'm from MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. It's basically a couple of queries and one observation. So when you are considering the sources of degradation, you did show an image of the Wayanad's landslides, and that leads me to assume that landslides are also considered to be a part of land degradation. However, the way that land degradation is understood, it's usually a slow onset events, right? Now, a hyper sort of local event like land slides, I don't think, I doubt if it can be considered under land degradation because they're very local and they are sudden onset events, and the effects are felt in the immediate areas, and it probably does not have an effect in the large variations of productivity across a district or across a region. That's one. And second was, if I understand right, you were using a ecosystem valuations approach using a benefits transfer approach. Am I correct? And yeah, and one more thing. You also did mention about the relationship between climate change and land degradation. While I understand that climate change will lead to land degradation directly and indirectly, could you sort of clarify how you think the other relationship works, like how land degradation sort of exacerbates climate change? Yeah, thank you. And I must say it's a very interesting study, and it needs to be taken forward. Like the chair said, like crop specific and production systems approach, and what crops are grown in which area and how does that affect land degradation. I think it's a very important study to take forward, especially in the context of environment and climate change. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a, I will say, you can consider this as a comment, on the paper on tenancy. I think that is a published paper, right? Okay. If you look into West Bengal particularly, West Bengal, other than, sharecropping arrangement, there is no way legally you can have fixed rent or fixed produce tenancy arrangements. But what is happening, especially in the northern area, I'm talking about so-called North Bengal area, that is how we talk, okay? It is the small investors, because if you see the pattern of urbanization that is taking place over there, it has one of the highest, I will say, growth of census towns. So basically the census towns from where you have investors who are informally arranging these tenancies. So if you talk about, tenancy arrangement, these are not legal arrangements. And this is done especially for rabi crops. I'm talking about potato, okay? Because there's a whole nexus of thing that is happening over there. Because the small producers, when they produce their potato, they will never find a cold storage to store their product. Because that is where, middleman and all those things comes in. So the question is, how do you get this data? This is very interesting for me because legally it is not possible. So how can you document it?
Anybody else?
No, this is a small doubt I have on the land degradation, continuing from what he said. Now, your data was showing that, Rajasthan and Gujarat, they were the two biggest areas in the land, over 90 million hectares. Substantial part of that is coming. Now, can you say that this land has always been like that, Rajasthan desert or the Gujarat of Kutch area? Why do you include that as part of the land degradation? Are you talking about the land that is getting degraded incrementally over the years, or you talk all the land that cannot be put to agriculture use, that is coming as land degraded. So I have doubt on that. Why you take all those areas which are actually not cultivated or not cultivable in your calculation. So that gives a wrong idea that, substantial part of the land has got degraded in recent years. Second doubt I have is about salinity also. You said the NRSA gives some data. I am not very sure how does the NRSA does the salinity through remote sensing or whatever that.
I think this is for him, the last presentation that you made. You mentioned about, valuing the degraded land. Was there some sort of, ecosystem method, that means CVM or something was applied for it? Okay. If so, means what are the studies you can refer to?
No, thank you for the, some of the beautiful comments and, a lot of clarification questions. So I just, I start with the comments first, which is actually, the salinity and erosion, two different regions are in fact the biggest states in the country, largest states in the country. So they have a different problems what we are actually coming from the physical data. Of course, I didn't look into the, how the cropping pattern linked to the land degradation. Of course, we have done some sort of work, but we thought of it's not coming in a proper sense of understanding how we can actually link these things. But still we are working on that. Thanks for the comment. The other one, so in the first slide, I showed in the source of, in terms of just highlighting the issue in the sense like landslide and all. That's also one of the, just to highlight the things. But in other sense, it's I also showed how the process, land degradation process happened in Telangana in the context of other, in the maize and all the other things, just for the highlight. But I didn't say that it's actually, it's a aggregate level, which is, it's a local issue. Of course, I agree with that. The other thing, one of the other comment, which is, again, it's touched upon the broader context of recent literature, how the linkages between the climate change and land degradation process, how the land degradation is actually causing to the climate change, right? So the recent literature talks about most of the carbon, the adapting or carbon sinking capacity is the terrestrial ecosystem in the sense, right? So when the degradation happens, the process is actually the observing the carbon things are actually goes down. That's one of the mechanism it works. That's the lot of literature talks about. The other things, the salinity issue, of course, the NRSA is actually, see, each and every organization, they come up with the different, in the sense like satellite-based data sets they are generating. So, and the one of the prominent is also the NRSA data, which is district level, in the sense like they have done long back, they have done, otherwise we don't get the data, right? So they have done long back, but most prominent one, there are many other people also talks about the wasteland atlas and many other, the things are coming up. But mostly we relied on the ISRO data. That's the reason, and also it's a more, again, how do you define at what level you're degrading? So one thing is, ISRO data says that, mostly our analysis comes from the ISRO data. So the ISRO data says that there is a high level degradation, there is a low level degradation. So there are recent studies like Terry kind of people who come up with some studies, the high level degradation, which is actually they treat it as they're completely biome change. Let's say, for example, it's agriculture degradation happened, so that if it is a highly degraded, it's no longer, comfortable with the agriculture, which is actually completely shifted to the barren land or something else. So the biome change kind of treatment happen. But when it comes to the low level degradation, the degradation happen within the system, but your productivity goes down because of that. of land. That's the two things. But in our analysis, we have only the data used for the low-level degradation. And we have used the benefit transfer method. So mostly, and we have also done for the ecosystem services things for the eye-level degradation thing. And also there is a Modi's data is also there. That's a very straightforward data, which is how the one biome to other biome, that's a very clear classification is there, but ISRO doesn't give that. So we stick to only low-level degradation data here. So what we have done, there was a study which is conducted in the, I think, Ranchi of the district. So that is also, it's a similar low-level degradation. And very systematically they calculated what is the per hectare cost of land degradation. They have come across, after doing all the calculations and adjusted with the inflation and everything, it's 8,000 per hectare. That's then we use for the, convert to the other states, we use the benefit transfer method. The same thing happened with the Haryana. So they have some 3 districts data. There was another study conducted. So they came up with some number. So we use that as a base to convert into the attribute to the other states by using the benefit transfer method. This is what we have done. So since we didn't get much time to go into the detailed thing, so I didn't mention detailedly, but this is how we have done the methodology. Thank you.
Thanks, discussion, for the very meaningful comments and for the clarificatory questions coming from the audience. So first of all, because of the limitation of the time, I actually couldn't discuss the database which I have used or the forms of tenancies or trends in the forms of tenancy. So very briefly, I'll put it here. We understand that there's a limitation of using secondary data for the analysis of tenancy. For obvious reasons, there's always hesitancy to report tenancy because of the history of land reforms in India, and then hesitancy that landowners, particularly the large one, having over reporting tenancy, even the land ownership. The database which I have used for the trends of tenancy is Land and Livestock Survey, which is conducted by NSSO. It started in 1955, but that has very certain limitations. From 1970-71 onwards, it is conducted every 10 years. The last one is in 2018-19, which was a part of Situation Assessment Survey. So due to that, I have presented my entire analysis of the trends of tenancy from 1971 to 2018-19. Coming to the forms of tenancy and the state policies and the tenancy. So in India, different states, since the land is state question, different states have different land policies regarding the tenancy. So in general, we can categorize them in around 8 groups. So some states have no control or no restrictions on tenancy. There are other extremes where the states do not allow tenancy in any form. Like in tribal dominated areas, tenancy is not allowed. Or in some areas, tenancy is not allowed for the households outside those tribes. For instance, in Kerala also, tenancy is highly restricted, in fact, legally not permitted. Still, tenancy persists everywhere in this country. How? It's informally, without any registration. So it's informal, unregistered tenancy. In India, almost around 80% of reported tenancy in NSSO survey is unregistered. The largest share of registered tenancy actually is in Bengal. Coming to the question of forms of tenancy, so in India, Mihika, can I have the slides, the last one? It's there. It's fine. So in India, the share tenancy was high in the 1970s, 80s. However, with the monetization of Indian economy, particularly the agrarian economy, the share of, the last slide. Because of limitation of time, I didn't present this. So we can see that there are different forms of tenancy persist in India. Though the fixed rent money is when the landowners seek a particular amount of money in return of giving the operation right over their land to the tenant. So irrespective of the yield, irrespective of whether crop will fail or what, that amount has to be given to landowner. The other is fixed rent produce, in that the contract is in form of whatever the grain or whatever is the product that is going to be produced on the land, certain amount of the grain has to be given to the landowner irrespective of the final yield. The third one is a share rent contract, where a fixed share has to be distributed between the owner and the tenant. And the other forms of tenancy also exist, where a lot of interlinkages prevails. So we can see that the fixed rent money contract has been consistently increasing in India in the period which I'm talking. And the share rent contract has been consistently declining. However, there are two exceptions, Odisha and Bengal. Their share rent has continued to be the predominant. Odisha, I need to figure out, but in case of Bengal, officially only share rent is allowed. Thank you. About the question on the, or comment on the politics of land and the tenancy. So, the policy regime is always led by the politics and the dominant political force which is ruling the society and ruling the country. So there is a consistently, we see the change in the political trajectory and how the public policy regime has shifted in this period. 1950s we see, even on paper at least, land reforms was there in agenda of central government and most of the states government as well. Though only the left-ruled states could have done some meaningful land reform, but others have never denied that they are against the idea of land reform. Almost all states have some or other legislation related to land reform. By late 60s, 70s, the focus shifted to incentivizing the cultivators. So giving the land to the actual cultivators, focus shifted to whoever have land, let's incentivize them to cultivate. By 90s, we moved to another political regime where the state has withdrawn to giving any support to cultivator, and now we are living in a political regime which is actually giving money to landowner. That's total reversal of idea of land to cultivator. Now the policy like Raitu Bandhu, PM Kisan, Kalia, Raitu Bharosa, all of them are targeting landowners and giving them money just for owning land. So it's a total reversal of idea of land reform. We have a paper on commentary on it, which is came in the Odisha Economic Journal. So how this politics and the tenancy has moved. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the comment. My comment on that inequality within the OBCs and their implication for state politics in India can be that, yes, there is inequality within the OBCs, and the debate like reservations within reservations is going on. So, to connect the inequality within OBCs is like that if the policy is driven by exact data sciences, exact data, then giving opportunities or state-sponsored affirmative actions to most deprived one will be very much appreciable in my sense. Thank you.
So I think the question was related to Ambedkar framework. So I have used this Ambedkar framework of economic emancipation with respect to Dalits of Jammu. As Ambedkar said that mere political rights is not enough. So Dalits also need to be given the economic rights, like land reform happened, different capital, etc. They need to be given. So yes, it is also important for the dignity. It's not only important for dignity of Dalit, but prestige, honor, and self-respect. So in that way, I am using this economic emancipation with respect to Dalits of Jammu. So thank you.
Okay, so I first thank you all the presenters for their excellent presentation. And I also thank the audience to participate in the discussion and sit through the session. I thank you and I close the session now.